Before the sun rises, before the first horn honks in traffic, before the first email hits your inbox, there's a window. A small, quiet window that determines the quality of your day, your income, and your life. And the question is this: what are you doing with it? Because while the world sleeps, someone's getting ahead. And while some are snoozing through their potential, others are building theirs in silence. The race doesn't start when the bell rings. It starts long before. The winner is usually the one who prepared before anyone else even showed up. That's why I ask you, what do you do before the world wakes up? Hit snooze 3 times? Scroll through the noise? React to yesterday's problems all over again? Or do you rise with purpose? Because the wealthy, the disciplined, the builders, they do not wait for the world to set their pace. They set their own, long before anyone's watching, long before the market opens, long before the coffee brews. Wealth, real wealth, is built in the early hours, when it's just you, your habits, and your philosophy. You see, there's a law here, a law that separates the rich from the average, the sharp from the scattered. And the law is simple: those who move first gain most. The world rewards those who take initiative, not noise, initiative. And initiative begins with ownership of your morning, not reacting, not catching up, but creating the rhythm that leads the day instead of following someone else's. I learned this the hard way. For years, I drifted. I let the day hit me like a wave. I started late. I responded to everything. And every night, I'd look back with frustration, wondering where the hours had gone. Until I realized something sobering. My life was following my morning. My wealth, or lack of it, was simply the scoreboard of my disciplines. The man I became each day was shaped in the first hour. And the first hour belonged to me, if I would just claim it. So I started studying, watching, asking the question, what do the successful do before the world wakes up? And I found something remarkable. It's not about working harder. It's about preparing better. They don't just rise early. They rise on purpose. They don't just get up. They show up. They protect that hour like it's sacred. And because they do, everything else begins to bend in their favor. So let me ask you again, before the world wakes up, what are you doing? Because if the answer is nothing much, then don't be surprised if nothing much keeps showing up in your results. Success leaves clues, and most of them are planted before sunrise. Let's talk about this law, the early discipline principle. It's not hype. It's not hustle culture. It's not about waking up early for the sake of it. It's about building leverage before the demands of the world start pulling at you. And if you learn to practice it, everything, and I mean everything, begins to shift. Let's open that up. Let me show you how this law works and why the rich live by it long before they ever look rich. There's a law that governs the lives of the wealthy, not just in their bank accounts, but in their time, their presence, and their peace of mind. I call it the early discipline principle. And here it is, plain and simple. The earlier you take control, the more leverage you gain. Discipline practiced early multiplies its impact throughout the day. And when that discipline becomes a habit, it reshapes your identity. Let me show you what I mean. You see, the rich don't wake up early because it's trendy. They don't do it to prove anything. They do it because the first hour of the day is the most powerful hour of the day. It's the hour before resistance wakes up, before distraction has a voice, before the world starts pulling on your time, your energy, and your attention. That early hour is where preparation lives. It's where clarity is found. And clarity, when multiplied over time, becomes wealth, not just financial, but emotional, mental, and relational. Most people live in reaction. They wake up to alarms, to notifications, to deadlines. They roll over and check their phone before they've even checked in with themselves. And that's the great tragedy. Because when you start your day reacting, you begin from weakness. You give the world the keys to your mindset before you've even had your first thought. The wealthy understand this. They understand that the man who begins in chaos rarely ends in peace. So they begin with order, with discipline. The early discipline principle doesn't say you have to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning, but it does say this: whoever controls the first hour controls the rest. If the first move of your day is reactive, your whole day becomes a defense. But if your first move is intentional, then your entire day begins to orbit around your decision, not your distractions. That's leverage. Let me put it like this. Most people wait for momentum to find them. The wealthy build it, and they start early. They wake with purpose. They move with strategy. They think before they speak. They plan before they act. And all of it happens before the rest of the world even pours their first cup of coffee. This law has always existed. Even before I had the words to describe it, I could feel it. When I started waking up earlier, not just earlier, but with intention, I started walking into the day with different posture. I spoke slower. I saw opportunities others missed. I was no longer catching up. I was setting the pace. And that is the silent advantage of the wealthy. They begin early, and they begin with purpose. Now, don't misunderstand this. I'm not talking about hustle. I'm not talking about running yourself into the ground. That's not what rich people do. They don't burn out. They build up. They don't sprint every morning. They prepare. They don't move faster. They move smarter. And the smart move is this: protect your first hour like it's sacred, because it is. It's where the roots grow that produce the fruit everyone else sees. And if you ignore that hour, you surrender your leverage. You give up your strategic advantage before the game even starts. That's why I say it's a law, not a preference, not a suggestion, a principle with consequences. Honor it and your life expands. Neglect it and your life contracts. But before we move on, let's address something that trips people up. You've probably heard all kinds of nonsense about morning routines and success. So let's clear the air. Let's break the myths that keep people stuck. Because if you've been believing a few popular lies, they may be the very reason you've been skipping this law. Let's talk about what doesn't matter and what really does. It's time to break some myths. Let's clear the table of confusion. Because when people hear wake up early or morning discipline, they start picturing chaos. They think of buzzwords like grind or hustle 24/7, and they burn themselves out trying to do more instead of becoming more. But let me tell you plainly, it's not about waking up early so you can do more. It's about waking up early so you can think better, move better, live better, and most of all, decide who you're becoming before the world has a chance to decide it for you. Let's break the first myth. You have to hustle every hour to be wealthy. That's simply not true. The rich don't hustle every minute. They strategize. They move with clarity. They conserve their best energy for their best work. You don't build wealth by working harder than everyone. You build it by thinking sharper, starting earlier, and wasting less. Hustle without wisdom is just motion, but discipline with vision, that's momentum. Second myth, rich people have more hours in a day. I used to believe this. I'd see someone who always seemed ahead, clean calendar, clear head, sharp posture, and I'd think, he must have some secret schedule I don't know about. But he didn't. He had the same hours. He just didn't waste his first two. That's the secret. You can't add more hours to your day, but you can steal some back from distraction, from delay, from drift, and you do that before the world wakes up. Third myth, if it's not loud, it's not working. We've gotten used to noise being a signal of productivity. But let me tell you something I've learned from watching wealthy people. The real work that moves the needle, it's quiet. It happens in silence. In the early hours, before the noise begins. No audience, no spotlight, just the simple daily rituals that build focus, strength, and structure. Don't confuse volume for value. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's not powerful. In fact, the most powerful routines are the ones done without applause. So if you've been thinking that waking up early means running yourself into exhaustion, you've missed the point. Early discipline isn't about chaos. It's about control. It's not about doing more. It's about becoming more intentional, more aware, more respected. That's the goal. Not a life that's busier, but a life that's better. And here's the truth. Most people don't wake up early with discipline because they don't believe it matters. They've never been taught what those hours are actually worth, so they trade them for sleep, for scrolling, for more of yesterday's habits. But the wealthy, they know. They know that those quiet hours are where alignment happens, and alignment is where wealth begins. Now that we've cleared away the myths, I want to tell you a story, because this law didn't become real to me because I read about it in a book. It became real because I lived it. I saw the difference between the mornings I drifted and the mornings I decided. And once I made that shift, everything changed. Let me take you back. Let me show you how this law became personal and how it turned a scattered man into a steady one. Let me show you the story that made early discipline a way of life, not just an idea. There was a season in my life where I was always chasing time, chasing opportunity, chasing clarity. I wasn't broke in the pocket. I was broke in rhythm. I woke up late. I moved slow. And I started each day with the weight of yesterday still sitting on my shoulders. I'd tell myself, I'll get caught up by noon. But noon turned into night, and night turned into guilt. That's what drift does. It delays not just your goals, it delays your identity. And I knew I couldn't afford to keep living like that. Then one morning, something shifted. Not because the world changed, but because I did. I set the alarm an hour earlier, not for work, But for me, just 1 hour. No meetings, no obligations, just stillness. At first, I didn't know what to do with it. I sat in silence. I breathed. I wrote. I planned. I moved my body. And what started as an experiment became a revelation. That 1 hour gave me back my sense of direction. It was quiet, but it was loud with purpose. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like a man ahead instead of behind. Over the next few weeks, I kept the rhythm. I didn't try to be a hero. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. and run marathons. I just gave myself 1 hour of ownership before the world demanded anything of me. I made my bed. I read for 15 minutes. I reviewed my goals. I asked myself what kind of man I wanted to be today and what that man would do with his first hour. Slowly, I started to see results, not just in productivity, but in posture, in energy, in belief. People started asking me, "What's different about you lately?" And I'd smile, because the answer wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a new deal, a new diet, or a new app. It was discipline. Practiced early, practiced quietly, practiced daily. I stopped drifting. I stopped starting from behind. I started my day like it belonged to me, and eventually, it did. That one shift taught me something the rich already knew. The man who owns the morning sets the tone for everything else. He walks straighter, thinks clearer, moves earlier. He's not surprised by success. He's prepared for it. And the preparation didn't happen in a moment of hype. It happened when the room was dark, when the phone was silent, when no one was watching. That's where the power is. Not in what the world sees you do, but in what you choose to do before the world even knows you're awake. Now, I want to give you that same clarity, because this law isn't mine to keep, it's yours to apply. In the next section, I'll walk you through exactly what the wealthy do before the world wakes up. Not theory, practice. 5 things: simple, repeatable, uncommon. These are the habits that separate the prepared from the panicked, the consistent from the scattered, the wealthy from the wishful. Let's get into it. Let me show you what to do before the world demands anything from you, and how that 1 hour can change the next 10 years. The rich don't wake up early by accident, and they don't do it for vanity. They do it for leverage. The morning is sacred real estate, and what you build there determines what gets built in your life. Now, I'm not here to give you fluff. I'm here to give you 5 specific practical disciplines that the wealthy install into their early hours. These are the quiet moves that create loud results. They don't take 3 hours, they don't require perfection, but they do require consistency, because what you do before the world wakes up reveals who you are when no one's watching. 1. Prepare, don't react. The rich don't roll out of bed and stumble into the day. They set their day before the sun sets the light. They start with reflection and intention. They don't ask, "What do I have to do today?" They ask, "Who do I have to be today?" They review their priorities, not their problems. They look at their calendar and filter it through their philosophy. The poor start their day with someone else's agenda. The wealthy start it with their own plan. This means planning the day the night before and reviewing it in the morning with clarity. Even 5 minutes of planning gives you hours of advantage. And here's the principle: when you own the first move, you frame the rest of the game. 2. Move the body, clarify the mind. Wealthy people understand this. Motion resets emotion. You don't need an Olympic training session. You need to signal to your mind, "I command this body. I'm alive. I'm capable." A walk, some stretching, breath work, anything that breaks the spell of sluggishness. Movement is fuel, and rich people move early so they don't burn late. Why? Because discipline practiced in the physical realm transfers to every other arena. You move the body, you sharpen the mind, you break a sweat, and suddenly problems look smaller. The rich don't move to show off. They move to stay sharp. 3. Feed the mind before the world. Feeds you noise. Before they scroll, they study. Before they consume junk, they consume wisdom. The wealthy rehearse their principles every morning. They know the mind is a garden, and if you don't plant something good, something else will take root. A few pages from a book, a paragraph from a journal, a principle from a mentor, these are the things that rewire your identity. If you wake up and the first thing you see is a stranger's vacation or a headline built to scare you, your day has already been hijacked. But if you begin with truth, if you feed your mind before the world feeds you noise, you lead the day instead of being led by it. 4th discipline: first, reward later. The wealthy train their willpower early, before it's tested by pressure. That's why they front-load small wins, making the bed, drinking water, tackling a high-value task without delay. These aren't chores. These are keystone habits that say, "I follow through. I don't negotiate with myself." And once you begin your day with a win, the next decision becomes easier. You see, discipline is like a muscle. You train it by doing what needs to be done before you feel like it. Every early act of self-respect adds another rep to your strength. And wealthy people stack those reps before the world even starts yawning. 5. Protect the morning from the world. This one might be the most powerful. The rich treat the first hour like a sanctuary. No phone, no emails, no messages, just focus, stillness, design. They understand that the world will demand everything from you the moment it senses you're awake. So they give their first hour to themselves, not in selfishness, but in strategy. The principle is this: when you protect the quiet hour, your life speaks louder. When you start from peace, you move from power. That's why the wealthy don't just guard their calendar, they guard their attention. And it starts first thing. Now imagine installing these 5 disciplines for just 7 days. Not to be perfect, but to be present. To prove to yourself that you can build rhythm, not just chase noise. These aren't trends, these are tools. Tools that sharpen your identity and multiply your influence. And remember this: nobody will see your 5:30 a.m. discipline. Nobody will clap for your quiet prep, but the results will speak. Your tone will shift. Your walk will change. Your decisions will carry more weight because you did what most won't. You led the day before the world asked anything of you. Now let's bring it home. Let's make it personal. Let's build your pre-dawn code. Because this isn't just a theory. This is a daily declaration. Let's turn these principles into your new identity. Let's go. Let's not leave this as good information. Let's make it personal practice. Because the difference between a wandering man and a wealthy one is not what they know, it's what they repeat. And the rich, my friend, repeat discipline before the sun rises. They don't just read about success, they install it. Quietly, daily, without applause, and you can do the same. So here's your challenge: build your own pre-dawn code. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be yours. And it has to start tomorrow morning, not next week, not after vacation, not when life slows down, because life doesn't slow down. But discipline cuts through the noise. Here's your code: 5 moves, 1 hour, built for real men. Wake with ownership, not delay. When the alarm goes off, you rise. No bargaining, no negotiation, just decision. Say to yourself, I don't hit snooze on my life. Move your body to reclaim your power. 10 minutes, that's it. Stretch, walk, push. Remind your brain who's in charge. Motion creates energy, and energy is currency. Read something that strengthens your philosophy. Not gossip, not garbage. Truth, principles, a paragraph that reminds you who you are and what you stand for. Write out the day before it begins. Don't let the day control you. Control it. List the top 3 actions that move your mission forward. Circle the most important. Do it first. Protect the hour. Guard the gate. No messages, no media, no reacting. This hour is yours. And when you give it away, you give away your edge. Now, do this for 7 days. Just 7. You don't need a massive overhaul. You need proof. Proof that you can shift direction. Proof that you can show up before excuses start speaking. And once you have that proof, you'll start to believe something most people never do. You are no longer average. And here's the beauty of it: nobody will see you do this. There won't be cameras, there won't be cheers, but you will know. You'll carry it in your eyes. You'll feel it in your stride. That silent victory will echo all day long, and it will separate you, not with arrogance, but with clarity. So build your code, commit to it, and watch what happens. Your peace will rise, your focus will sharpen, your confidence will come back, not through hype, but through habit. That's the Jim Rohn way. No shortcuts, no secrets, just discipline, philosophy, and daily choices. Now let's close strong. Let's return to the law, because it's not just about waking up early. It's about waking up rich in behavior before you ever become rich in dollars. Let me give you one final charge. One truth to carry into tomorrow morning and the next 1,000 mornings to come. Let's finish. You don't see the rich when they're becoming rich. You don't hear them when they're laying the foundation. That's because wealth is quiet until it's not. Before the house stands tall, the roots go deep. Before the applause, there's silence. Before the fruit, there's soil. And that's what early discipline is, the silent soil of greatness. It's not flashy, it's not loud. It doesn't post itself on social media, but it compounds, and eventually it speaks for itself. Let me tell you what I've seen after a lifetime of observing both the wealthy and the wandering. You don't become rich the moment you earn money. You become rich the moment you start behaving like someone who earns it. And that behavior starts before sunrise. It starts when the rest of the world is asleep and you've got a choice to drift or to build. Every morning is a vote for who you're becoming. And if you cast enough votes for laziness, for delay, for reaction, you build a life of regret. But if you cast your votes early, in silence, in discipline, you build a life of influence, of integrity, of wealth that matters. So don't wait for the world to tell you it's your time. Claim your time before the world opens its mouth. You want more income? Start with better rhythm. You want more clarity? Start with less noise. You want more confidence? Start with more consistency. That's the math. That's the principle. And the principle always pays. Let this be your line in the sand. I rise before the world because I build what it cannot yet see. That's your charge. That's your rhythm. That's your edge. Write it down. Speak it out. Live it tomorrow. And if you're ready to begin, drop it in the comments right now. I rise before the world because I build what it cannot yet see. Not for me, for you. Because once you speak it, you own it. And once you own it, your life begins to align with it. And that's when the world starts to notice. But by then, you're already 10 steps ahead. Quiet, clear, unstoppable. Now go do what the rich do before the world even wakes up.